back to something because you were so focused on your career and your work. I feel like that singing side got kind of put to the side a little bit.
Well, it was timing. Timing is everything, right? So I sang until about 2004. And then my daughter was 5, and I got a divorce. This sounds like a country song, doesn't it? Like my dog died, and actually my cat died. My daughter went to school and got divorced, and then I started my MBA program. And so I knew that would be more versatile than the country songwriting, right?
Yes,
so I was like, okay, if I only have time to do one, that's the one I'm going to do, and it paid off for me. I'm happy I did that. But, all the work I did as a country singer-songwriter, the press kits, the marketing, the making the phone calls, the getting booked, all that stuff plays into my new role as both a speaking performance coach and also a professional speaker. So I speak on leadership, success, communication skills, all those kind of things. Because I'll tell you, and like I said before, in all those years, communication skills were the number one thing that most people had in common. The lack of those skills is what kept them from moving up the ladder. People scratch their heads and they say, why can't I get a promotion? Well, there's reasons. And most supervisors won't tell you. They'll, they don't want to tell you, you really can't, you don't speak well and I don't understand you. And, there's problems there. So getting independent feedback on how you present and how you come across before you even say a word. People judge you before you ever open your mouth as to the goodness of the information you're about to give them. Do you look like you have your act together? Do you sound like you have your act together? Actually, so getting back to what I promised I was going to tell you about. So that's the number one thing holding people back from their career goals, whether that's a professional career, an entrepreneur's success, communication goals. Absolutely. Speaking and communicating, right? So who cares about, we all hear about communications, right? You're like, whatever. But here's the thing. If your boss has ever come up to you and said, hey, I've got to be at this other thing. I just found out. Could you go take this really super critical briefing? Could you go and talk to the customer and tell them all this stuff? The slides are made. All you got to do is talk to it. And you go and it's terrible because you have no idea what you're talking about. That's humiliating, right? And maybe you are an entrepreneur and you've heard, anywhere, you just go Google it. The fastest path to cash is speaking. That's how you get the most leads in the shortest time. But speaking is also the number one fear people have after dying, right? So you just told somebody they've got to do the thing they fear the most in order to succeed in business, right? Or even if you're like a stay-at-home mom and you get, all your friends volunteer you to be like the PTA chair, and now you've got to put a speech together to talk to all the parents. That can be, if you haven't given a speech in a while, that can be pretty high pressure too, right? Or maybe, okay, here's a really good one. This isn't even speaking on a stage or to a bit in an audience. How about just communicating with your team? You swear to yourself, I just said that. I know I've told them this 1,000 times. Why can't they get it? Well, it's because you're telling them the same thing 1,000 times. You're not changing what you're saying because they're not getting it. You're not putting it in a way that they understand, right? Communication and the lack of good skills is so frustrating for everybody involved, And so having those skills is a big deal.
I think it's so important, whoever you're trying to speak to, especially like you say, if you keep having to repeat yourself and no one's really taking action on it, you have to change what you're saying. Still the same information somewhat, but you need to say it in a different way, just to raise that attention and get people to take it in and keep it in.
Yes.
Just to retain that. If it's boring, if it's said in a boring manner, then people aren't going to listen.
Oh, it's terrible. And that's why I actually teach speaking performance skills. What you're actually saying, they've actually measured it. People, only 7% of the communication, the message you send, is your actual words. There's body language, there's tone of voice, there's lots of different things that you're communicating with people without ever saying a word. Think about when your kid does something you don't want them to do in the store and you give them the stink eye. You didn't have to say a word, but your kid knows he's going to be in trouble when you get home, right?
Yes.
So, it's the performance and the strategy behind your communications. And that's what I'm actually excited to be moving into in 2018. I'm actually working on some live events that are going to roll in improv and karaoke and performance and make it fun because, okay, people love Toastmasters and they are great at what they do, but they're very regimented and they're very rule driven. And I want to flip that model on its head and make it fun in a small group, maybe 12 people, safe environment where people can learn those skills so they can think on the fly, pivot no matter what happens. Because that's what people are scared about, right? Being embarrassed. Not having an answer if somebody asks them a question or that kind of thing. So I'm really super excited about it. It lets me combine my performance background with my technical. I presented at the Pentagon and to all kinds of leadership and all the services and be able to combine my technical presentation skills with my performance skills and give back and help other people to be much more resilient when they're briefing and get better results faster. I mean, that's the bottom line.
I think it's great. I mean, when I hear you doing something like that, I think you're doing it so different to what I've ever heard before. And I like it. I like it very much because I think it's going to give people that maybe didn't have the opportunity or maybe they didn't think that they were able to speak. They didn't think it was going to be something that they would be able to do. And you give them a little bit of a lease of life. Like when you talk about improv and karaoke and these fun little things that make them go, whoa, that was okay. I feel good doing that. That wasn't as bad as I thought.
Exactly. You lived through it.
Yes.
And you did a good job. And I'm gonna have a method to give feedback where they actually can see how other people are taking in their message and if it's landing the way they want, and then they have a chance to practice delivering it in different ways. Because the last thing you want to do, think about this, the last thing you want to do is go, if you are in a time machine and you got blipped over to the last inning of the World Series, the last thing you'd want to do is be the pitcher in the last inning of the World Series when you have not played baseball since T-ball. Yes. You do not want to be in a high pressure speaking situation and you haven't had a chance to try different things and see how it landed and get immediate feedback, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be in a job interview trying things, right? You don't want to be pitching to an important customer on an important concept in a new product that's literally going to help you make your bonus. You don't want to be doing that speech to them and not have, practiced and how you can read body language and, adapt your presentation based on how hot is the room, how, all those little variables that you can't, prepare for. You have to be resilient in high pressure situations. And that's what I'm going for. I want to take some of the fear factor out, some of the nervousness, and get people real practical experience doing this thing that is going to make the difference in their paycheck.
No, I think it's great. And I think the ideas that you've got experience in doing. You've also got a very vibrant personality. So if someone stands there looking out on their stage with their microphone in their hand, doing their karaoke section of the course, and they're going to go, I just know you'll jump on stage and get the microphone with them and say, right then, come on, what are we going to do? I just know that you're going to step in and help and guide people to do something that could turn out to be amazing for them, because, that's what I think people can do. And none of us want to be at a boring presentation. Like we don't.
Oh my gosh.
We don't. I mean, one thing that I've started to do this year in my presentations, and it's been great for me. I've actually got somebody else to do my PowerPoint presentations.
Oh, so to develop your slides, you mean?
I get someone to do that because that's perfect. Not my zone of genius. So I want to concentrate on speaking, and I do. And I send all my content to this company, and they do all my branding and they do my PowerPoints, and then they send them to me. I'm like, oh, now I'm listening. Like, it really gets my attention. And I haven't got a graphic design background. I can't do that. I want to be able to concentrate on speaking, grabbing the attention of the audience and doing things. I don't want to worry what's behind me as my PowerPoint when I'm pointing to something if I'm doing a PowerPoint in that actual speech, I want to be able to look behind me and go, okay, they've got their attention on the PowerPoint and on me. And I didn't realise how important it was to have a PowerPoint and how boring I'd found other people's PowerPoint presentations in the meantime.
Oh, it's just absolutely brutal. And I'll tell you, I learned during my singing days that you can lean on technology, but you can't 100% rely on technology. And so I'm going to teach strategies for dealing with that too.
Yes.
What do you do if the projector won't work?
Yep.
What do you do if you've got a clicker that won't advance the slides? What do you do if the power goes off? What do the show must go on.
Yeah, I love
right?
that concept. Yes.
Yes. And so there's strategies to deal with all that. And other things that you have to think about, especially in the corporate environment, you may have come up with a great 10-page slide deck. But you know what? You may set up an appointment with that decision maker, your boss or your boss's boss, whoever wants to be briefed. And he may say, look, my meeting ran over. I've only got 5 minutes. Just walk and talk with me and tell me what it is you want to meet about. So you don't get to use the PowerPoint, and you've got to be walking and talking at the same time and avoiding people in the hallway, right? I mean, so that's very off-putting for people. So putting those crazy situations.
I love that you're thinking about that, because that's right. That could happen to you, because you still get your person that's going to make a difference and influence big decisions that you want to be part of. And you're right. You just lost your 20 minutes, but you've got 5. So you need to know your points. You need to get your points across in that short amount of time. The best points.
Exactly.
The best points that this person can take away with them and go, yes, you're the one for the job. Yes, I want you to do this based on that 5 minutes. So I think it's something that's really, really needed, and it can help all age groups, all career paths. I think it's a really great communication thing that you're doing. Now, the title of our show tonight is Going from Invisible to Invincible. Tell us the 5 steps. I know we talked about one a bit earlier, but we got so carried away talking about everything else that we love. Go back to those essential steps there, Mary, because I know some people need to hear that just to give them the confidence, really.
Yes.
That's what they need.
Well, so I've got a 5-step process to think about things. So we talked about the number one thing holding you back from your goals being communication. And what you just said, it's every age group, it's every profession, it's you talking to your significant other. Communication is the biggest common denominator that ruins relationships and finances. So to go from invisible to invincible, you have to be heard. You can be, we talked about it. If you've got a great idea and you're over here in the corner and you can't communicate it, you may as well be invisible. You're going to work, but nobody's listening to you. You don't have any effect on the decisions being made, and all your good ideas are going to waste. So the first step is, anytime you want to have an important round of communication, are you presenting? Are you having a job interview? Are you talking to your spouse about spending too much money? Good luck with that. But these are the questions that before you ever open your mouth, I'm writing an ebook right now, and the first part is shut up and listen. And I mean that in the nicest way. And I hear my little Southern grandmother going, it's not nice to say shut up, but just shut up and listen. And that is to stop and think. So the first thing to think about, the acronym for my 5 things to think about is whoa, why? WWWWI. Whoa, why?
Okay, cool.
Think, whoa, why? Okay?
Yes.
So the first what is, what ultimate outcome do you want out of this communication? Do you want a promotion? What are the high stakes? Do you want this big sale on the back end? Or do you want this to be a long-term customer, or you just want to make one transaction? What outcome do you want from this relationship that you're having this communication in? The second W is, what are you trying to get across in this particular? So we know our long-term goal for what we want to achieve, but this, that's like